This is what I want you to do for me. I want you to imagine your first day in junior high, and the teacher says, picture yourself winning $80 million. $80 million. And a little bit of time passes, you buy a house, you buy several houses, you buy all your family houses, you do credit repair, you open up scholarships, you feed the homeless, you give a homeless cat a boat, like not even like a person, like an actual house cat, give him a boat, put the cat through college. Now there's a whole genre of action movies of cats driving boats, and you started it. You rejuvenate the economy, you know what I'm saying? And you haven't even touched $30 million. Everything's taken care of. All your family's good. What would you do? You already been around the world, all that stuff that you do. You've already done it. What would you do? Because whatever you would do on that day is probably what you should do for a living. And, you know, my name is Parker Edison, and I can tell you who I am, but Google me when I leave. I don't do work for nothing. Google me, find out who I am. But I am Parker Edison, and this is a PSA, this is a Parker service announcement. This is 3 things I wish I would have learned instead of geometry. And the real title is 3 things I wish I would have learned instead of geometry, because I still haven't used an isosceles triangle ever. But for YouTube purposes, let's just say 3 things I wish I would have learned instead of geometry. The first thing is, I wish I would have learned to listen to myself. Like in school, you're taught to be goal-oriented, but no one takes the time to say how you get those goals. I mean, they're coming from you. And when you're in school, a lot of what you're doing is taking instruction from other people. I don't recall a time that a teacher ever pulled me aside and taught me how to listen closer to myself, which is absolutely a key tool needed in getting goals accomplished. Imagine where you'd be in life if one of your teachers would have pulled you aside and said, hey, you know that thing that you love more than anybody else? Go do that for a living. And because no one ever does that necessarily, or no one that I see or I saw do that, it makes me think that sometimes we're just borrowing other people's dreams, like our parents, or we just kind of be like, he did construction, I'll do construction. He did the military, I'll do the military. And we just kind of borrow somebody else's dream for a while. And we think, I'll somewhere along the lines, I'll get my own. But we don't necessarily. But we don't. And a lot of that is because I think our parents and past generations, they put a focus on job stability. And that's the second thing I wish somebody would have put in front of me when I was younger instead of a geometry book, was this idea that self-fulfillment is more important than job stability. If Michael Jordan had focused on job stability with Nike, he and Nike both would have went broke. But him sacrificing and shaping his life so that he could best craft his craft, that's almost godly in a way. And I think that idea that someone has such a faith in something that they can't see, and they're willing to shape their entire lives to get better at it, and then show other people that they can do it, that's what puts feet in Jordans. And I didn't understand that. I was super, super busy trying to get a job that gave me stability, which is actually counterintuitive to the human experience. Some of you might only live once. I'm gonna live several times personally, but yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Some of y'all might only live once. If that's the case, taking a job where you stay in one place is counterintuitive. It doesn't give you the opportunity to learn. It denies you a lot of opportunities. But I was still looking for stability, and I took the time to write down the jobs. I had a ton of jobs, and I took the time to write some down. I worked at Hot Topic, Sam Goody, Wet Seal. I sold dope for a while. I was a dishwasher at Geppetto's. I worked at Domino's, Pizza Hut, Papa John's, Wendy's, Jack in the Box. I was a telemarketer. I was a furniture mover. I hate furniture moving. I was a furniture mover for like 2 years, and this is what I figured out. If you don't have a degree, you do a job where you're standing up. If you have a degree, you'll do a job where you're sitting down. That's just the start and end of that. I didn't want to be a furniture mover. I worked at a movie theater. I worked at a summer camp counselor. That was dope. I worked at a 66 program. I would train kids and teach them Hebrew. I worked in group homes. I was a barista. I taught 5 years in a middle school. Shout out Parkway Middle School. Shout out Mr. Locke. That dude was a genius. I was a bartender, a caterer, a house painter, a waiter. I really did those jobs, but you never get a chance to do that Dr. Seuss thing, so I wanted to put that in there. I had 62 jobs. I had 62 jobs in 15 years, and I felt like a failure. I didn't understand that I was really getting all these different experiences because no one told me self-fulfillment was more important than job stability. There's this song by Jay-Z. I'm a big Jay-Z fan, big rap fan. Yeah. There's this Jay-Z line, and he says, damn, I'm gonna be a failure surrounded by thugs, drugs, and drug paraphernalia. And I was cool, like I had friends, all me and my guys, we would parlay, we would throw parties, we were cool kids. I didn't have a job per se, but I still was being, I was lucrative. I had a good life with it. But I would still be in these parties and it would be full and I would be like, yeah, but oh boy got a pistol. Oh, girl smoking mad weed. So-and-so is pregnant over there. Hey, damn, to my soul, damn, I'm gonna be a failure. Surrounded by thugs, drugs, and drug paraphernalia. To my soul, I would say that. And I just didn't understand. Nobody told me. Nobody told me. And that brings me to the point 3. Thing 3 I wish somebody would have told me is that success isn't a destination. It's an adjective. Success and failure are both adjectives. They're not even, when they're in the dictionary, they're put there as nouns, but they're not. Like, you don't see, like I got a homeboy that he's been successful in his business. My cats from Platform Collection are successful. My guy Kali is successful when he throws his events. I have friends that are successful and have been a success. But it's an adjective that describes them. I'm here. I'm a hustler. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm a lecturer. Sometimes I'm a music agent, I'm a thinker, sometimes I'm a boyfriend. And I've been a failure, but I'm not a failure. I can't be all those things and be a failure at the same time. I can fail at some of those things. Failure and success are adjectives, and nobody ever told me that. No one ever said, not only are they relative, the terms are just relative, and sometimes they're interchangeable, but actually failure it's a part of success. You'll spend more time failing than you do succeeding. Honestly, you spend more time failing than you do succeeding. And failure teaches you more. I deal with rappers. I listen to a lot of music. And one of the things they talk about is a sophomore jinx. A person will put out a fantastic record, and they'll be like, yo, he's going to get the sophomore jinx on that second record. They don't think he can keep up that standard. Because success doesn't teach you as fast as failure does. There's these movies called The Karate Kid, right? And what happens in all 3 of them? Old boy goes in there, he gets waxed, then he goes and he studies, and he learns what he probably should have learned the first time, and then he goes in and he beats boy up because he failed though. He learned in failure, because you learn more in failure, in my opinion, than you do in success. Fire's been around as long as we know. Every single person that has ever touched fire had the exact same thought. Ooh, don't do that. That wasn't a good idea. That was a failure. Every single person for every year and every time you have ever done it a second time, you had the exact same thought. Oops, still not a real good idea. That was a failure. But you learned so fast, you touch fire, and within seconds, generations of knowledge are traveling through your body. And you're like, oh, this is not a fine idea in any way, shape, or form. Because you learn more from failure. You learn more from failure. If I said, who's successful at dating? You might think you are, but you're only gonna marry one person. You might marry 3 people, but you'll probably date 10, 20, 30, however many people you date. The more people you date, the less successful you are at it. So everybody in here is a failure if we're judging you by your successes, because you're only gonna marry the one person. If I asked you what you didn't want in a person, you could tell me. If I asked you what would make the perfect mate, you wouldn't be able to tell me. You learn more from failure than you do from your successes. And the reason why I'm talking about this is not because these points are necessarily important. These are things that I evaluated because I began to evaluate myself. And I tried to figure out, where do I get these things? I started in myself saying, where do I laugh? Where do I get that laugh? Or when I say, good to go, who used to say that? Where do I pick up these things? I didn't invent them, and I could almost trace stuff back and be like, oh, my father used to rub his chin when he would say stuff. And then after I started looking into myself, I started looking into my habits, and I started tracing some of those back. And I was like, ooh, where did I pick up those habits? And here's why it's super important. Here's the real reason I'm saying all this, is because we're in this real interesting place in life right now where the ceilings are opening up. It's getting bigger. It's just that time. There's a changing of the guard, and it happens. So the bullies that were holding some of these horrible policies in place, just because their time has passed, they're on their way out. The Donald Sterlings, the Weinsteins, the Suge Knights, all these cats who bullied and kept a lock on good businesses, they're being replaced. And that's why I started to notice that, and I was like, man, I gotta start looking at my own policies, because now we're in this place where the ceiling's getting wider. And these bullies that used to hold these horrible policies in place, they're being replaced. What are we gonna replace them with? Are we gonna use the policies that we learned? Because I grew up under the tutelage of flawed logic. Racism, sexism, classism, they've been around forever. But the Jim Crow era, that's the heyday of all of those things. Like racism, Jim Crow is like it's like Woodstock for racism. They so fondly remember the Jim Crow era. And a lot of the people that are being replaced grew up smack dab in that season. And I'm just using the Jim Crow era as an example of, this was a period where we had flawed logic. So we had people learning flawed logic. Well, now we're progressing. Logic's progressing. Society's maturing. So now those people, those policies, those pillars are falling. They're being replaced. What are we going to replace them with? And so then I started finding the flaws that I might pass. And that's when I started picking these points that I could have picked up instead of geometry. So I'm gonna take off, but this is the 3 things I would love for you to do, okay? 1, unlearn something. Doesn't have to be big, just something. 2, tell somebody. Tell somebody what it is. 3, encourage your little brothers and your sisters, your nieces and your nephews, your neighbors, to dream a little bigger. We don't know how much longer we'll have this time and this opening. this transition. We could streamline our lives by just sculpting our principles to be more efficient. You don't have to tell the little ones that, but just tell them they can dream a little bigger. And when they seem to dream small, nudge them, encourage them. And if they're interested in how to dream bigger, tell them how. And that sounds mad complex, but it's not. It's like, I'm surprised my brother didn't call back in this whole time. I thought he was gonna call me. He did not, but if you wanna explain it to him, this is what you do. You say, yeah, nah, I don't like, I eat Hawaiian pizza. I like the flavor of it, but I pick the pineapples off. But I like how the flavor is in it, you know? So let's get 2 slices of that. You want Sprite? It's Sprite, yeah. Okay, we'll do two slices of Sprite. Hey, thanks for coming to pizza with me, young man. Listen, remember I said I had that thing I wanted to talk to you about? This is what it is. Imagine you won $80 million. Hey, and that's my whole speech, but shout out to my man Evolve One, because he really supported me coming out to do this, and he was gonna do it with me today, and he was gracious enough to let me just do it on my own to share some thoughts. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.